Imagine this, a man who once captivated millions in Pretty Woman, a man who was Hollywood's dream, standing at 74 years old, revealing a truth that would make everyone pause. Not about fame, not about a role, but about love. Richard Gere said it himself, "I didn't get divorced because they were wrong. I got divorced because I wasn't good enough to hold on." Now here's the twist. A man who had been married 3 times, a man hailed as the charming gentleman of Hollywood, suddenly admits that love isn't about finding the right person. It's about becoming the right person at the right time. But this isn't just another Hollywood love story. This is the journey of Richard Gere, a man who went from fame to solitude, from insecurity to serenity, from control to understanding. It's the journey of a man learning how to love, not by instinct, but by growth. And that growth? It wasn't in the arms of glamorous stars or on red carpets. It was in the silence, in the stillness, with the woman who didn't come to change him, but to stay. Before he became the charming Hollywood icon we know today, Richard Gere was just a lanky, thoughtful kid from Pennsylvania. A young man who played the trumpet, composed music for school plays, and had a passion for philosophy. Picture this, a teenager sitting in a quiet room, lost in his own thoughts, wondering about the bigger questions in life. He wasn't thinking about fame. He was thinking about becoming someone. But instead of staying in the world of music and philosophy, Gere chose a different path. He left it all behind to pursue theater, not because he wanted to be famous, but because he wanted to be someone else, someone more interesting, someone bigger than himself. And it was there, in the world of theater, where Richard Gere first began to master the art of charm. He wasn't just a good-looking guy. He was a man who knew how to draw people in, how to make them believe he was the one they had been waiting for. Yet, even in the early days, Richard wasn't just playing the charming man on stage, he started to play him in real life too. And that's where the trouble began. With his mysterious, quiet demeanor, Gere wasn't short of women. But the relationships came and went quickly, as though love was just another part of his performance. Intense enough to be intoxicating, but never lasting long enough to hold on. By the time Richard Gere was stepping into the spotlight, he wasn't just playing characters, he was living out the role of Hollywood's most eligible bachelor. From Looking for Mr. Goodbar to Days of Heaven, Gere became a rising star, known for his good looks, mysterious charm, and a presence that left a mark on every room he entered. But despite all that fame, love, that was another story. In the 1970s and 80s, Gere's relationships were intense and passionate, but they were fleeting. There was Carol Mallory, the fiery model who compared him to a shooting star, burning bright but fading fast. Then there was Penelope Milford, his Days of Heaven co-star, who stayed with him throughout the 70s, but even that couldn't last. He also had a brief but deeply impactful romance with Sylvia Martins, the woman who took him to Nepal and introduced him to Tibetan lamas, meditation, and Buddhism. Beautiful, intelligent, daring women, each one leaving an imprint on him, but none of them staying. Why? Because Gere was still playing the role of the charming man, but he wasn't yet ready to step into the role of a partner. Love was just another chapter in his self-discovery. It wasn't about finding stability, it was about chasing something he didn't fully understand yet. He was living fast, always on the go, but never stopping long enough to know what he truly needed. The relationships came, they went, and Gere found himself surrounded by the noise of Hollywood. Whispers at parties, paparazzi flashes, lonely nights in hotel rooms. He was the man everyone wanted, but at the end of the day, he was still searching for something deeper. In 1988, at a BBQ party in Beverly Hills, Richard Gere met Cindy Crawford. He, the Hollywood heartthrob. She, the 22-year-old supermodel fresh off magazine covers. It seemed like fate, two of the most beautiful, famous people in the world coming together. The chemistry was instant, undeniable. The tabloids went wild. A match made in heaven, right? They fell in love fast. So fast that just a few years later, they were married in a quiet Las Vegas ceremony. No red carpets, no media frenzy, just two people trying to make something beautiful out of their whirlwind romance. But here's the twist. Beneath the glamour, something was off. Richard, tired of the spotlight, sought peace through meditation, focusing on his spiritual journey and humanitarian work. Meanwhile, Cindy was still in the throes of her rising career. She was jetting from photo shoot to photo shoot, maintaining the perfect figure, trying to live up to a brand built by the media. The distance between them grew. They were living two different lives, moving at different paces. Cindy said, "I tried to become the woman he needed, and in doing so, I lost myself." The fairy tale was starting to fade. There was no scandal, no betrayal, just a slow, quiet drift. And by 1995, they quietly divorced. No public drama, no messy headlines, just an understanding that love, even the kind that looks perfect on paper, can't survive when the timing isn't right. After his divorce from Cindy Crawford, Richard Gere could have easily jumped into another high-profile relationship or kept chasing the spotlight, but he didn't. Instead, he took a step back, a big one. Gere didn't want another flashy romance, another moment in the media glare. What he sought now was peace. In the years that followed, he retreated into a quieter, more introspective life, traveling, meditating, diving deep into Tibetan Buddhism. And this shift wasn't just about finding solitude. It was about finding himself, getting comfortable with the man who had always been at the center of the spotlight, but never fully understood his own desires or needs. And it was in this newfound peace that he met someone who would truly change his life. But who was she? A calm presence, someone not dazzled by his fame, someone who understood the quiet that had begun to surround him. His journey toward love, after all these years, was just beginning. Then in 1995, Richard Gere met Carey. She was calm, grounded, and most importantly, she didn't come into his life looking for Hollywood glamour or fame. Carey, a former Bond girl, wasn't interested in playing the role of Richard Gere's wife. She was someone who could offer him the peace he'd been searching for. And for a while, it seemed like he had finally found the stability he craved. In 2002, they married quietly in a private ceremony, far from the eyes of the paparazzi. There were no extravagant celebrations, no media frenzy, just two people seeking a life away from the chaos. They lived in Pound Ridge, New York, away from the glitz of Hollywood. It seemed like the perfect match. Carey had found her calm, Richard had found his peace. But as with all of his past relationships, things slowly started to shift. Richard, now deeply invested in his spiritual practices, spent increasing amounts of time meditating and retreating from the outside world. Carey, while embracing a quieter life, still had a need for social connection and movement. Their worlds, once aligned, began to move in different directions. By 2013, after 18 years together, Carey filed for divorce. It wasn't the result of drama or betrayal. It was a quiet realization that they were no longer on the same path. Their lives had taken different turns. Richard had become more introspective, while Carey, though not in the public eye anymore, needed a different kind of connection. They agreed to share custody of their son, Homer, and though the divorce wasn't messy, it left a deep, silent sadness. After his divorce from Carey, Richard Gere all but vanished from the public eye. No more red carpets, no more high-profile romances. He had entered a new phase of his life, one of quiet reflection and peace. But just when he had stopped looking, love found him again. In 2014, while Richard was retreating into his spiritual life, he met Alejandra Silva, a Spanish social activist and entrepreneur. It wasn't the whirlwind romance that Richard had known before. This time, there were no flashy moments, no media frenzy. Just two people who had both been through heartbreak, both with their own scars, but both ready to embrace something deeper. Alejandra, who had recently gone through a divorce herself, wasn't interested in the Hollywood spectacle. She was more focused on the work she was doing through her foundation, helping the homeless in Madrid, and her own personal growth. Richard, now 64, had lived through his fair share of love stories, but none of them had been quite like this. He didn't need to prove anything to Alejandra, and she didn't need him to be anyone but himself. Their relationship grew quietly, without the noise of the media, and in 2018 they married in an intimate Buddhist ceremony in New York. Alejandra, who had embraced Richard's spiritual path, said it was the first time in her life that she had felt truly understood. For Richard, this was the woman who didn't try to change him, but loved him exactly as he was. In their life together, Richard had finally found what he had been searching for all these years. Not a love that filled a void, but a love that allowed both people to simply be. Richard Gere's journey from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood to the quiet, grounded life he shares with Alejandra Silva is a testament to the power of personal growth. After decades of being the charming, charismatic man everyone thought they knew, he finally found a love that wasn't built on expectations or performances. It wasn't about filling a void. It wasn't about being the perfect couple. It was about two people who, after years of searching, were finally ready to simply be themselves together. His past was filled with intense love affairs, marriages, and moments of glory, but none of it compared to the peace he now shares with Alejandra. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. Their love is simple, it's real, and that perhaps is the most beautiful love story of all. Richard Gere once said, "I don't need to be in Hollywood to know I still exist." After 3 marriages and a string of high-profile relationships, he had finally found the one thing he had always been looking for, someone who didn't need him to be someone else, a love that doesn't demand but simply is. So, what do you think? Does Richard Gere's love story inspire you? Do you believe in the idea that love comes when you stop searching? Share your thoughts below, and remember, sometimes love isn't about holding on, it's about letting go. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to follow the secrets of the biggest icons in history.